Welcome to the Neckbeard Experience. This is a compilation of a bunch of shorts that I got from my patrons. I wanted to go ahead and get this put out, but I do have some pretty cool stuff ahead. Hope you guys enjoy that. That should be... Actually, I don't really have a time period. I want to give a special thanks to my patrons for this. If you want to enjoy hearing shorts and not have to wait for like a week or two before I get something out, just go to patreon.com, only $1 a month, and you should be able to receive those perks. I want to keep that up because it is actually quite fun to be able to just get something out quick, and I can be more creative with it. So, but regardless, I'm glad to have you. I hope you guys enjoy this. So without further ado, here we go. This is a story about Bronybeard. This is a guy I used to know in school. Now, there's a lot of stories I know about this guy, but I'm just going to give you a good relative idea of how he was. For starters, Bronybeard was around 15 or 16 years old when I first met him. He was chunky. He really didn't have a neck beard, but he did have a lot of acne. He actually did smell decent, because he told me once, "Mom forces me to take showers." And he's also balding. He really loved My Little Pony. He wouldn't shut up about it. The guy really didn't have much style. I mean, he wore khakis with sandals and a Mario shirt. If it's winter, he would wear a trench coat, and he always had a catchphrase like, "Yeah, this is about to get 20% cooler." He also had a brony backpack. Sometimes he carried his Pinkie Pie plushie around so he could use it to comfort himself at school. Now, these things paint a very awkward person, but it really doesn't make him a neckbeard. I mean, so what? Do you have acne, you're balding, you dress funny, and you like children's programs? Who doesn't have things about them outside the norm, if that is actually a thing? It was his bizarre and disturbing behavior that really classified him as a neckbeard. For instance, here's a few infamous things he did. One day, Bronybeard showed up to school with his entire My Little Pony plushie collection. He brought it into class, and he showed all of his classmates. What really made it awkward was that one of the plushies had a fleshlight in it. He also admitted, "Yeah, I like My Little Pony porn. That's so hot. I also have a subscription to a site on it." His Facebook, it was full of My Little Pony porn. He also spammed the group in Messenger with stuff like that all the time. He would also get triggered every time you said his favorite pony sucked. He would get angry and he would growl like a dog at you. There was actually quite a few people who took pleasure in bullying him. This is actually one of the reasons why he left school. I once had a fight with him because I voiced my opinion, and he got very aggressive, so I kicked him in the stomach. One time when he was meeting my family, he tried to molest my sister. Again, I kicked him in the stomach. This time he did accept and understand that that was not acceptable, and he never tried it again. One weird thing about Bronybeard was he was never really consistent on his relationships. One minute he would say, "Hey, we're best friends. You're my best buddy." And 2 hours later, he would hate you and be growling at you. "Get away from me." One thing that he always did at school was he always tried to act like the stereotypical nice guy. But instead of the girls actually saying they didn't like it and being disgusted by it, as one normally would, they would manipulate him by letting him do the task in exchange for validation. This is cringy both ways, to be honest. It's actually pretty dangerous, so if you do this to the wrong nice guy, you could get yourself hurt. So please don't do this. I went to Bronybeard's room one time, and it was a complete dumpster fire. I once took pictures of his room. I'm not allowed to show them, but if you've ever seen a neckbeard nest, his room would be exactly that. Maybe a few exceptions. Like for instance, there was My Little Pony merchandise and plushies everywhere. He also ate chips for breakfast and lunch, which he left on the floor in his room, and he also bragged about it. All he usually drank was energy drinks all the time. I'm surprised he hasn't died from it yet. He also loved elevators a lot, so every time he got on an elevator, he has to ride it at least twice, and he films it just like a James Bond film. And sometimes he likes to jump in the elevator while it's moving. What could go wrong, right? He's also fanatical about Mario, to the point that every time I played with him, with something involving Mario, he'd always try to get me distracted or cheat, so that he could win. He thinks that Mario games are very serious, to the point that he spends most of his salary on Nintendo games, products, and the like. For instance, this dude has like 26 Nintendo 64s, 5 DSs, and like 7 2DSs. And he also owns 3 Switches. And he thinks that the console I like, PlayStation, is for babies. He is also a fanatical in his beliefs, to the point that he tried to attack a Christian preacher. At that point, I had to restrain him. And when this guy isn't fapping to My Little Pony, he's either trying to get a lot of junk food, playing some video games, or threatening some girls on the internet. He once asked me, "Hey, you want to go see My Little Pony the movie?" No thank you, man. I've got things to do. I don't have the time. More importantly, I'm not a brony. So he went with his neckbeard friends, and they went to the screening. The thing is, they literally brought fetish stuff to a kid's film. And one of his friends actually masturbated in the theater, and they were immediately kicked out. Here's some context. Every year as a family, we go to the Renaissance Festival, and our costumes are actually pretty decent. We stopped by one of those classic carnival games where you swing the hammer, and if you hit the top, it rings a bell. Now, there was a girl running it, and I had to go. And as I was leaving, an overweight guy came by. I realized that this guy actually owned the stall. I thought his costume was a little off, and he talked kind of weird, but I overheard him saying, "There's gonna be a strongman competition around 5:30. So I left, and then I came back for the competition. The reward was this shirt that said, "Strong like bull." I think it was said that way intentionally, and it looked pretty cool, so I wanted to get one. When we came back around 5:30, the girl that was running it earlier was gone, and it was just this guy. My sister and I did some competitions earlier, so she jokingly asked,
"Can I join in the strongman competition?"
Then the guy said, "It's a strongman competition, sweetheart. It's meant for men, not for the delicate female gender." Well, my sister stared at him awkwardly, and then she asked,
"Does that mean girls couldn't join?"
The neckbeard had the audacity to tell my sister, "Well, yeah, but all the guys would laugh at them if they fell, so I don't get why they'd even want to." My sister was speechless. Then this guy walked off to some other customers. I didn't hear the entire conversation, but I did hear some of it. He yelled at this one girl that was maybe 20 or 21 years old, who was dressed like a fairy, and he said something like, "Don't tempt me, nymph. I have 3,000 brothers to feed." At this point, I thought this guy was weird and sexist. At the moment I realized that he was a neckbeard instead of just a plain asshole was when he started talking to his customers. And he said, "I'll have Grandmaster Ezio take care of you." Then I realized what that costume was from. It was a low-quality medieval robe. It was one of those cheap, crappy $10 Halloween costumes that can only come into styles meant for children or college girls who like to dress up like slutty nurses. At this point, my sister was ready to leave, and I was kind of on the fence, when another customer started taking his turn. The bell device had a bunch of levels of strength, depending on how high you hit it. But unless you almost hit the top, they were all insults to the customer. And the customer only got up to Nancy Boy. Now this wouldn't have been bad if it wasn't for the neckbeard, who was constantly yelling at this guy. "You're a Nancy Boy!" Everybody was clearly uncomfortable, and he made it worse. That's when I tried to give the guy some advice. Now this machine had a rubber block that you hit with a hammer, and there's 2 holes that has the bolts that secure it in place. If you aim for the hole that's closest to you, you'll hit it harder and make it go higher. Well, the neckbeard took my advice and started mocking the guy. "Come on, buddy. Get it in the right hole, if you know what I mean. That's what she said." making a very blatant sexual innuendo. Then while this guy was leaving, the entire time the Neckbeard was mocking him. "You're a Nancy boy!" At this point, my sister pulled me away. I didn't want the shirt badly enough to care. When we were in the car, we started talking more about it. And something I apparently missed was that when the Neckbeard was talking and making those sexual innuendos about the right hole, he was staring creepily at my sister the entire time, without taking his eyes off of her, all the way up until the guy was done. The year was around 2012. I played a lot of Warhammer 40k. I don't really like to be competitive, but I was part of this group and they really needed one person so that their team could complete a tournament. I decided to give it a shot. The tournament took place in a food court of basically a dead mall. It's like a 2.5 hour drive away. This is one of the grossest Neckbeard events I've ever experienced. I'm not going to relate all of them, but here's one that really stuck out. We'll call it the Mad Pooper. I don't know what it is about round 2 of each day, but they were just stupid, both rounds on both days. Now on day 2, two gamers had a very contentious argument over the rules. This tournament was very clear at the beginning. The ruling of the judge is final, even if it doesn't follow the exact letter of the game rules. You could protest, but if you got aggressive or engaged in unsportsmanlike behavior, that was an automatic disqualification for the round. And if you acted up enough, you and your team could be fully disqualified from the tournament. Well, this one guy decided if he was going to disagree with the judge, he was going to shoot for the moon. I mean, he was absolutely ugly to his opponent. "Where'd you learn how to play? You suck." Well, a judge saw the commotion and he attempted to mediate. "This stupid plebe over here thinks his dumbass can play the game stupid and win. He's an idiot." Well, he ruled against this aggro Neckbeard. Well, this set the Neckbeard off, and he started screaming out, "F*** you! This is bull***." And he stormed off. He went straight for the restroom, the only bathroom that was opened and shared with the tournament. You could probably see where this is going. All the players around were shocked by the outburst, and it interrupted the play long enough for a whole bunch of players to watch this guy storm off to the bathroom. Again, the only bathroom opened in this dead mall for this tournament. A few minutes later, 2 or 3 guys come running out of the bathroom. They start screaming like, "Oh my God, that's disgusting!" And another guy said, "Somebody go in and get that guy." Well, the head organizer grabbed a security guard and went to the restroom. This Neckbeard that was ruled against for being rude and unsportsmanlike was squatting on the floor, taking a massive dump. Yet again, the tournament had to be delayed while the police were called. That way they could deal with this mad pooper. Well, he was taken to jail, and his entire team, they were handed a disqualification. So I finally decided to bite the bullet and share my own experience with the Neckbeard. I'll be calling him Derek for the sake of the story. For a little bit of background, I run a theater group in my town. It's a small group, currently about 14 members, and the majority of them have known each other since primary school. About 3 years ago, we got some new members who thankfully stuck around. Derek was one of these people. Now he's your stereotypical Neckbeard. Questionable hygiene, very questionable. Anime t-shirts, has some peach fuzz around the neck area, you know the type. He also has quite a bit of an attitude when he wants to, especially when it comes to girls in the group. And at least one of the boys, Josh. We'll get into that in a little bit. This particular story happened about 2 years ago. Myself and Alan, the main guy that runs the group, makes a list of potential shows, and we let the group vote on which ones we're going to perform. This particular year, the winner was Joseph in the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. Is it a very cheesy show? Absolutely, but most people in the group, including myself, have a lot of fond memories about watching the show, especially on VHS, when we were kids. Besides, There were a few good dance numbers, which meant that we can get some local dance clubs involved. Derek didn't like this. He had been very quiet when we announced the show and was discussing characters, costumes, and the set. After everyone had gone home, he came to speak to me about the show. He asked me to reconsider my decision, even though it wasn't just me, it was also the group that made the decision. Well, he explained. I feel very uncomfortable doing a religious show. I'm not a religious person because I don't believe in fairy tales. Listen, you don't have to take part, but we're not changing the show. Besides, you don't have to be religious to enjoy the show anyway. I'm not religious myself, and I don't think most of the group are. And it's not exactly biblically accurate anyways, so... Well, Derek wasn't having this, and he continued to complain about the choice. However, after realizing I wasn't backing down, he eventually gave up and left. I assumed this was the end of it. Oh boy, was I wrong. After we decided on who was going to play which characters, we decided to jump straight into rehearsals. This is where things started to go downhill. Derek had been cast as the brother Levi. However, he wasn't too pleased about this. He wanted to play the role Benjamin. It's a bit of a change of tune from someone who didn't even want to do it. However, we'd given the part of Benjamin to Josh. Now Josh was the youngest one there, and also the smallest member, so it kind of made sense. The other boys tended to baby him, so it kind of added a little bit more to the show, actually seeing them acting like real brothers. Well, this ended up with another rant from Derek about, "This is so stupid. For crying out loud, a magical sky wizard didn't create everything, you stupid monkeys." Anyone who didn't agree with him was idiots, apparently. This is also when he started to turn on Josh, and he started treating him like crap. It started fairly small. He scoffed, and he made passive-aggressive remarks about Josh's acting, his dancing, and his costume. He'd also kindly remind the others of Josh's age whenever they picked him up or hugged him or jokingly covered his eyes. There were also several crude comments during the Benjamin Calypso when Josh had to kneel before Michael, who was also playing Joseph. "Hey Mike, try not to get a chubby. Josh might take it personally, if you know what I mean." It made the other ones feel very uncomfortable. They barely joke around with each other about that. Never mind a man they'd only known for a few months. He never took it too far in front of us, as we did have the option to prevent him from playing in the show. But we found out later, after Derek left the group, well, that's another story entirely, that he was extremely horrible to Josh whenever they were alone together. For example, during this time, one of Josh's pet rats was extremely sick, and he had to have him put to sleep. Well, Josh, of course, was very upset. He'd always been upbeat during rehearsals, but this time he wasn't. I was later shown screenshots of text from Derek that was sent to Josh. "You're pathetic for crying over a stupid rodent. You ruined the rehearsals with your moping." He invited Josh over for some songs with him, only to berate Josh for, well, whatever he felt like, really. Josh was not the only one who had to deal with Derek's behavior. The two dancers from the show told us that Derek had been extremely inappropriate with them. The first girl, Sarah, was Derek's dance partner. According to her, he constantly made lewd jokes. "Wouldn't it be funny if your skirt lifted up? Only hope you're wearing some sexy underwear. If you did, I'd have something nice to look at." I genuinely feel grossed out by this. He also asked her out several times, even going as far as asking the other boys to ask her out for him. Thankfully, they didn't. Around this time, Derek would share posts on Facebook or write statuses about how he was always going to be alone because girls didn't care about the good guys. Well, more than likely they did, but you're not one of them. Usually the people who say these things aren't good or nice. Alan and I weren't really sure what caused these posts at first, but according to Sarah, the post would always come up after she rejected him. The second dancer was a girl closer to my age, about 24 at the time. She did tell us about Derek's creepiness. He spent most of their conversations talking to her chest, never looking at her in the eyes, which, let's be honest, would make most people uncomfortable. We had a stern talk with him, and for once, he actually listened. He took care to look at her in the eyes whenever he spoke to her. It's still just creepy that he did that in the first place, though. The last thing was less severe, but it actually led to him getting his dad involved and accusing us of harassing him. For our version of the play, we opted to have quite a bit of audience interaction, specifically having the brothers jump off the stage at several points in the show and interact with the audience, and sometimes bring them up on stage. This is where Derek's personal hygiene really became an issue. Derek's hygiene was bad, like to the point where we were generally concerned, until his dad told us that, "Oh, that's just how he is," and he openly admitted,
"I brush my teeth once every few days. That's all it needs. Just gonna get them dirty again anyway. I don't like deodorant because it's for tryhards."
In his mind, guys wore deodorant were only doing it to try and impress girls, which I have never been able to understand. Like, what is the logic behind that? Anyways, no one wanted to go to a play only to be bombarded by the scent of BO and bad breath. So we tried to sneakily get him to clean up his act. The group would bring up mints and chewing gum, pass them around the group, and eventually go to Derek and try to freshen him up a little bit. We even decided to all go swimming at one point so that he would have to take a shower. Eventually, one of the girl's nephews, a very brutally honest 3-year-old, brought up Derek's odor, much to the aunt's embarrassment. Well, she apologized profusely, but hey, kids are unpredictable, and it wasn't her fault. I had to talk with Derek after this. I didn't say anything mean, and I didn't really bring up his hygiene on the off chance that there was something going on that impacted his hygiene. As someone who suffered from severe depression, I know how much of an effort it can seem sometimes. I did tell him, however, hey, the hall gets pretty warm with all the lights and the amount of people, so it's going to make people sweat. So I suggest that you keep some deodorant on hand, just in case that happens. This was apparently the most offensive thing I could have said to Derek, and he went off. He started to rant.
"How dare you single me out? You are all discriminating against me because I don't want to contaminate my body with those useless chemicals."
No, dude, actually, most people don't want to be contaminated with your body odor. That's a narrator's opinion, so he eventually left. And the next day, Alan received a very unhappy phone call from Derek's dad, accusing us of bullying his son. Alan basically told him the same thing I did. His dad talked a lot of crap about us and the group, slandering us to anyone who would listen. But he didn't take it any further, thankfully. Side note, there's a lot of reasons they should have got rid of this guy in the first place. You could be nice to someone like that, but putting up with abuse, that's not kindness. That just hurts everyone involved, honestly. Do you have to be a little bit harsh? Yes, you do. But usually that's the only thing these people will understand. And are they going to take it gracefully? Hell no. They never will. It's all about them until it's something bad. And if it is something bad, it's your fault for singling them out. How dare you? Even though they're the one who's dragging around the spotlight. Sorry for the rant. I digress. Surprisingly though, the show actually went pretty well, if I do say so myself. Derek did perform, and he behaved himself for the most part, though he did fail to show up for the last 2 shows. He said he was sick, but I'm not too sure I believe him. Needless to say, we're the most fun to do. Thank you all again for joining me. I think I'll have like a randomly funny thing next. Probably going to be about a raccoon and some snow crabs. I know that's confusing. Wait for it. I'll have it prepared soon. Thanks again for joining me. And again, special thanks to my patrons for your support. Well, I'm off. And until next time, this is Dallas signing off.